Half Aleph Tevet, Samech Vav, page Kuf Beit.
So we completed the mashal of the Maturgaman. But there was a mashal for the Mamutza of Keser. And we saw there were the two Madrigas in Keser, Atik and Arich. And we saw the mashal of the Maturgaman, Shahoya b'yamei ha-tanoim v'amorayim, that his inyan was to give over the limud of the Rav to the simple people, that they weren't berech harav, afilu le'achrei the Maturgaman, afilu le'achrei what he gave over to them, they weren't be'erech to the seichel harav. And we saw the function of the Maturgaman was that he was also not on the same level of seichel as the Rav. However, and by him the seichel of the Rav remained the Havdolah and a Flor Sairach. But that's the union in the Nimshal. That's how Atik is always Ne'atach v'nivdal. The word Atik has in itself the lashon Ne'atach v'nivdal. Nonetheless, we saw that he is able to be margish the etzem sichli sheba seichel harav. That's the dogma of Atik al Chaponim. It goes down into, or chait, to go into Arich, but we saw that even that was not in a direct way, but it was in even that he's lokeach inyan. We use the expression, he takes the inyan from the way he has it in the Hagosha Pnimis that he has in the Seichel of the Rav. And we brought a dogma to that from one inyan we learn a traitor inyan, and even though there are two different inyanim altogether, but one illustrates and indicates to us how to take the other. And that's called lakicha. We saw that was a inyan, which is not a direct shocher from one to the other, but it doesn't in any way disturb the etzem quality or the etzem kesher between the two inyanim. It's just that they're two different levels deriving one from the other in a form of distance, but nonetheless also with an emes kesher. And that's what we call lakicha. We call it lakeach. And we saw that Ali Deiseh, he then has lefi chushov. He takes the seichel harav, and then he gives his taking of the whole seichel harav into chushov. He gives that over then later to the Am, because since he's already taken it into his own yonim. And the way we learned the lashon here in the Maimah was that that's ikar in the sichli, in the what you might call the rationality or the etzem seichel that there is in the Rav, in the message of the Rav. And the Indian from seichel, it's possible to him to say that he feels the etzem seichel, although he only feels it. And then he translates that or brings that over within himself, or even shalakicha, to a union which unites with his powers and his chushim, and then he's able to give it over to the people. And we saw that was the union of the mamutza. So the two studim in the mamutza, the etzem argosha that he has in the seichel harav, and the pnimi is the etzem seichel harav itself, but that's bavdola mimenu. And then we saw that he takes that over, but even shall a distance, albeit, but in a way that still preserves the inner content. He takes it over into his chushim, and then eventually he gives it to the receivers. So that's where we're holding right at the bottom of Omot Kuf Beis. V'had dugma mizeh yuvan lamayla bepinas hakesef. If we take that dugma, as we saw Barichas about the Maturgaman, be able to understand the inyan of the Madrega called Alpi Pnimis Hatera Keser, that its function is to be a mamutza. It's a midpoint, a go-between point, Bein Hamatzil Lener Tzolim, between the Eibishter, how he's completely higher than the spheres of Atzilas, to the Ner Tzalim, the spheres, how they become specific spheres in Olam HaAtzilos. Now, when we say Ma'atzil and Ner Tzalim, we mean still within the Inyan of Elokus itself, because Atzilus is still Olam HaElokus, it's still Olam HaAchdus, and we only get to created beings and Nivroim after Malchus Atzilus. So when we say that this whole Inyan happened in order to be a Mamutza Keser, occurred in order to be a Mamutza Bein a Ma'atzil, that means the Eibishter is be etzem beyond even Keser, to the Ner Tzalim, meaning the spheres, and we're talking of in Elokus Gufa. Now that's the big Kiddush of this whole Inyan, that these, as it were, nuances and changes and Shinuyei Ha'erech occur within the Eibishter himself, in order that he should go down and become Shat to the Ner Tzalim. And then we'll see further as we go along. From the Ner Tzalim we go over into the Olam Nivroim, or that's Olam HaBriya, and then Yetzirah V'Asiyah. So we're talking for the moment only the Giskashus between the Ma'atzil, the Eibishter how he is, Lamayl even and Keser, to the Esespheres of Atzilus, which are called Ner Tzalim. We saw that Keser is Kolum Mivchinas Atik ve'Arich. It's got two levels. We discussed them before. Atik meaning the Pnimius and the Elin of the Mamutza. Arich is long faces, that's the union of Arich Anpin, or that's already the lower tzad of the Mamutza. The Bechinas Atik Husha Ne'atach Vanivdal Legamre. We saw that if we take that from as regards the spheres, and we look Milmata Lamaila, then Atik is Ne'atak, withdrawn Vanivdal and separated altogether. Rakshi Mimena Nimtsoim Bechinas Ha'oiras Da'arich. She'ein ze b'chinas oiras da'atik mamish. B'chinas oiras da'arich nimshach el haner tzalim. So here we see how it functions now in the actual Keser itself, in the Nimshal, from the whole Moshe of the Maturgaman. Just like we saw that in the Maturgaman, the way he understands the Seichel Harav, to how he brings it Lefi Chushov, the Koichoisov, it's like a gap, and it's only called Lakichot. He takes that. In the same way here, we said that Atik is really higher Lagamri than Arich. And therefore, it's only that the Oiras of Arich are Nimtsoim. They come out, B'derech Matzia, they're to be found, Begiloi mi Atik, She'ein ze b'chinas Oiras da'atik mamish. It's not a direct Yerida or a direct Ashpah from Atik into Arich, because, like we saw in the Maturgaman, they're not be'erach one to the other, and his chushim, as we take it in the what that's Arich, in the Maturgaman, not be'erach to the actual seichel of the Rab. And therefore, in the same way, Atik can't be taken by direct Amshocha into Arich. It has to go only by way of Nimtsoim. Therefore, the Rebbe uses the bitui Nimtsaim, because Ayin Fanamatzia is like something that comes without preparation, as the one on the whole Moshe of Amatzia. She'ein ze b'chinas oiras da'atik mamish, or b'chinas oiras da'arich nimshach el haner tzalim. Like we saw, that once the Maturgaman has it lefi chushov, and his koiches, then he can give it over to the Makablim, and that's a direct Kabbalah. That's a Kabbalah, not b'derech Matzia, albeit not completely, but it's much more a direct Amshocha. And so then from Arich it goes into the Ner Tzolim. In kein masha meya b'ner Tzolim, hein b'chinas oiras da'arich levad. What actually goes in and shines and is mislabish in the spheres of Atzilas is only the oiras of Arich. Just like we saw, what goes over to the receivers from the Maturgaman is only here what he took lefi chushov or lefi koichov. Avo atzmus b'chinas Atik, of the pnimius of Atik, nertach mihem legamre, is completely withdrawn from them altogether. V'gam b'keser gufer b'chinas atzmus Atik hu b'chinas hatocha vav dola. And we saw that even inside Keser itself, that was the case. We saw that Atik compared to Arich is a Havdolah, and it only comes b'derech Matzia, like we saw Nimtsoim Bilvad. And therefore, Atik, Atzmus Atzmus, the Atzmus of Atik, Hu B'chinas HaTocha V'Avdola, Ki'im Shemezeh Nimtzoyim. What Nimtzoyim means, that to be found. Like we saw the expression when we get to our Metzia, when you go and you find the Metzia, it really has no preparation on your part that you could have said you reached that Metzia, you just were going along and you found it. So that means that if an Atik, even inside Keser itself, remains B'Havdolah from Arich, and Arich is only Nimshach, and reaches all of its oirois only b'derech Metzia bilvad, in a distant way, and like we saw in the Moshel, the lakicho from one in to another. Nimtoim oiros da'arich shehu k'moi oyer acher. What the Rebbe says, that the truth is to say that in a direct and what you might call straightforward way, that really implies that even within Atik itself, even within Keser itself, the Hevdel between Atik and Arich is really like that of one Oyer and then another Oyer together, which is not really identifiable with the original Oyer, which was Atik. And so that arouses the question, the famous question on the part of the intelligent reader, Yidachim Kain, then we need in the Mamutza itself some sort of Mamutza. How do we get this Lakicha, and how does this whole Nimta indicate Sha'inim from Loi Ba'erach? How does that seem to work if that's two parts of the same Mamutza? It's like we go back, and so in Ayin Beis and in other places in the Chassidus, the Rebbe Rashab, there's a whole big view on that. The truth is we have to have another sort of very important type of mamutza, even inside the mamutza. It's like a mamutza inside a mamutza of a since to our somewhat relief. Rebbe doesn't go into that here. He just says that the hamshocha from Atik into Arich itself is only b'derech Metzia. So he leaves you there with that question maybe hovering in your mind. How does that actually work? And what's this inyan from Lakicha? In the Marshal, we take from one inyan to the other, but that remains a little bit also not defined. It's obvious we're talking about something a little bit Lamaila Mi Seder Harogio, and so therefore, how can we call out a Mamutza? It's supposed to be linking everything in a nice linked way from one all the way down to the Adya, and it doesn't really seem to do that. And so therefore, the truth is, in other places, there's a big discussion about that. But here the Rebbe is mistapek by saying that the oiros of Arich are nimtzoim from those of Atik, and they're like another light. It's a oyer acher. But that already implies that it's very different in its pnimius and its quality compared to Atik. Like we saw that the Seichel Harav, Lagabi de Maturgeman, is also Betachas Avdola Mimenu, and his whole inner that he can take is only his Magish, the Sichli, with the whole thing that we saw, that's his upper Madrege, and then he brings it down also, B'derech Lakicha Buvat, that also indicates that there's some gap in the middle that would be interesting to know. How is that bridged? So, B'chinas Mamutza, HaShayach LaOilames, however, Hainu Bein HaMa'atzil El HaNer Tzalim. Now this is very important, because we're talking on different levels as we go along. Keser is the Iker Mamutza that Keser performs, is for the sake eventually of Oilames, but in a more particular way, it's Bein HaMa'atzil El HaNer Tzalim. And it says Mavur and Ayin Beis Bariches, that the Rebbe points out over there also that the principal mamutza of Keser in the two madregas of Arich are in order that we should get to the 10 spheres of Atzilas. And they're called, as we said, Ner Tzalim, they are Mamish Elakus, and they don't fit into the whole union of the lower Yerida into Nivroim. Therefore, the Ikka function of Keser in the Seder of all the Giluyim is that it's a mamutza bein hamatzil el haneh tzolim, and that's only a necessity in order that we should eventually get to Oilames, but not that Keser is a mamutza in which gives rise to the Oilames. It only leads and gives rise to the ner tzalim. As we go along, what is a mamutza that leads to the Oilames? there has to be a further step and a further union. Well, we'll see shortly as we go along that we managed to somehow or another resolve that. Yadua, now we come on to another union. Yadua, Dalidei Emtsoyes HaKeser, Nase is Chabres, Oirein Seif im Neshamas Yisrael, Shehu Gam Kein Keinyan Mamutza, Ela Shehu Ba'ifan Acher Mianal. So, there's also Mavur 9 base about Riches, that we have another union apart from Spheres, which is Ner Tzalim, and Nivroim, which are Oilemes, Gimel Oilemes, and Nivroim, Ibriya Yitziras here. We have another tremendously important entity, which are the Nishomes. They're the Nishomes of the Yidden, the Nishomes Israel. What it's well known that they are Mamish Elakus, Kamavoy and Tanya and Perek Beis, and in many places that the Nishomes are Mamish Elakus, but they come down also into eventually into Elamus V'Od Eich. They come down Mamish into the Guf Gashmi of Yidden Lamata in this world. So there was in the Rebbe, we have to say that in order to bring about and to give rise to a entity which is Mamish Elakus, and it's going to have the ability to come down into the Elamus and Yivroim and eventually be Mislavish in a Guf Gashmi Lamata, then we have to say that they are very high Madrega, as was pointed out in Tanya. So he said that they also, the Neshomas, they gain their Hayas and their Gilui through the Mamutza of Keser. In other words, we just point out that Keser is still beyond the Ilamas. It's higher than, it's only shot to the Esa Sphira. So in a similar way, but in a different way, and maybe even in a higher way, the Eden from Keser is shot to the Nishomas. In other words, that the Nishomas, they gain their Hishavas, that they're coming into being, and they gain all the content that they have in order to come down into the world and enter the Gashmi Lamata. They receive also from this Mamutza or Elyain of Keser. But it's in a different way how it is to the Ner Tzalim. It's even Acha Mihanal. So how does that work? Va'inyanu ki yadua bi'inyan ish chabros ha'elyain im ha'tachtei. It's well known if you want to join a Elyain with a Tachtei. And so we're not talking about Stama Elyain and Stama Tachtei, but the Alter Rebbe is Mavai and Nekut Torah in some places which are brought down in this piece here. But the Alter Rebbe talks about two, an Elyain and a Tachtei, or Mamish Einom Be'erech Zelazeh Klau. In other words, that the Elyain, he's a Goiva, Hahar Mamish, and the Tachtein, if we take a moshel, Gashmi, and the Tachtein is Lamata, Mata, not just on the ground, but Betoich, how do you call it, Betoich Ha'oimek. He's in a deep valley, or how do you call it, in a deep Tiffanish, as they say, a deep part of the Tachtein. So how are you going to unite those two together? If you want to be Machaber, those two levels, then how do you do it? The Rebbe says that that can be done in two ways, and it's quite simple. Either the alien is going to come down and he's going to meet the Mata, or the one down underneath will go up and reach and be on the same Madrega as the alien. However, so that's fine, and it's brought down and says that there is such a as we'll soon see in a minute. There's some dugmois that may be going to be given for these two possibilities. They don't happen mamish simultaneously at the same time. Come over, either it's going to be that way or it's going to be that way. So therefore, says that a bit omnam. However, kasher atachtoin ena yochel aleisamaila elia. Well, let's say that for some reason at this time that we're meeting the whole situation, then the Tachtein Eina Yochel Aleis Lamaila El Hoelye. He's not able to be oila so high. I mean, that's a tremendous aliyah that the tachton should go all the way up to the mokim ha'elyon. So it could be situations where the tachton is not able to do that. He can't go up and meet the elyon. So yesh oid oifen gimel. Then there's a third way that we can bring them together. Vahu shaha elyon yored lamata ad makoim ha'em tzoi shebein ha'elyon le tachton. That the that the elyon will go lamata to the mokim middle point. In other words, you might say, well, we'll meet in the middle. The elyon will come down halfway, as it were. Mokim ha'em shebein ha'elyon le tachton, which is in the middle between the elyon and the tachton. Va'tachton oila l'mayla, and the tachton, he will go upwards, but ad mokom hanal. But he'll only go half the way, as it were. He'll go up that middle point as well. What will happen? V'shom be'emtza heim misyachadim, and there in the middle they will meet up and they will unite. In other words, that since the ikka here is mitzad the tachton, the ikka problem is mitzad the tachton. Mitzad the elyon ain't by the elyon can literally do what he wants. Of a mitzad the tachton, it could be that he's not able yet, for whatever reasons and what may be the inyonim, he's not able to come up. Ad kedikach, he should go all the way up to mamish mokim ha'elyon. Therefore, we make a middle meeting point that the elyon comes down. Well, that's not for him a difficulty, but the big chiddush is that the elyon, that the tachton does actually go up, even albeit not the ad kedikach to the top, but he goes up at least to the middle, and the elyon comes down, and they meet, and they are mishyachid in that middle point. So I mean that's a fascinating. What we're going to see now how that works. V'dugma ladova, and he said we can bring a dugma to this inyan. Kemoya efresh bein b'chinas vayera Hashem al har Sinai shehoya gilu erin seif mamish lamata shezeh masha elyon yored lamata. So first of all, dugma ladova, we're going to give a dugma of the first two possibilities that we stated. Dahainu aleph, that the elyon will come all the way down lamata. Base, that the matter will go, the tachton will go all the way up to the elyon. First of all, we're going to give a dugma of those two possibilities, and then we'll move on to the third one. So he says, "Dugma." The first one was the expression which occurs by Matan Torah, that right before the actual revelation of Hashem at the Aseres HaDibros at Matan Torah. Then it's written, Vayered Hashem al har Sinai, al Rosh HaHor, that the Eibishter came down and appeared literally on the what you might call the summit of Har Sinai. Shahoya Gila Erein Seif Mamishla Lamata. What that means in Parshas that the Eibishter came down onto al Rosh HaHor. He came down and he was Mishachid with a madrega, how it is tachton. Shazeh masha elyon yored lamata. That's what the elyon comes down lamata. As it brought down, even in Rashi over there, Rashi brings al chaponim in Sefer Dvarim. Rashi brings down that the Eibishter was Korea as kol elyonim v'hishpiloisam v'hadikot al Rosh HaHor, that David took all the elyonim and he brought them down and he spread them out literally on Har Sinai. Well, that means that the elyon with all its madregan, all its inyonim comes down lamata. Uvein, and what is the other possibility? That the tachton goes up Maila. He said that's going to be Liosid. With the word Liosid doesn't mean a distant time anymore. It means taken from Yad. No. Ubein Liosid Sheiyeh Aliyas HaTachton Lamaila. Liosid meaning taken from Yad B'Izkalas Moshiach, even though it's written in certain drushim, that means the time of Tchias HaMeisim. But once Moshiach will come and things will get moving very quickly, as is well known, and it won't take very long before Tchias HaMeisim, and it's well known that the great tzaddikim will anyway appear, Begoli anyway at the time of his Galus Melech HaMashiach, so there'll already be a Gilui HaMeisim or Tchias HaMeisim, whatever you like to call it, when it gets to the great tzaddikim, B'Yisha Hazman. So therefore, it's not really a tremendous difference how we say Sam Liyosid or we say Bizman Tchias HaMeisim. Al Chapanim, at that time, Shiyeh Aliyas Atachtein Lamaila, then everything's going to go upwards. Ukiya Dua, and that means it's going to go upwards, mamish to the alien. It's going to meet, like the Alter Rebbe says, Bereish Kol HaMadrei, Bereish Aha Mamish. Ukiya Dua, the Liyosid, Yizdachech Hamato, V'yiyeh B'mokim HaMaila. When Moshiach will come, then the lower realm will be mizdachech. What mizdachech from the word zach, it's a how do you call it? What do you call it when you work back on yourself? Purified. Purified. First? Purified. Yeah, well, that's what it means. But what do you call it when the verb changes into the I've forgotten the grammatical expression. Future. Future. Anyway, it will purify itself. It won't just be purified, but it will be purified in itself. The matter will go bimkoim hamayla. But we see that there'll be a big condition that it'll have to be purified. Yizdachech. From the word zach. V'yiyeh b'makim hamayla u'kamesh kosev b'sidor softi v'amasru Hashem svosai tiftach b'tfilas reisha ashona. But over there the Alter Rebbe is mavaya this union of the Yer Ha'elin Lamata and then the Mata going Lamayla, and he says that the difference between the Gilead, how it was on Har Sinai, was that the alien came down, but when it went back up again, Kaviyohu, when it retreated after the whole Gilead of Matan Torah, then the world remained much the same as what it was, Golui al Chaponim, after Matan Torah is what it was before. However, Chas v'Shalom, we can't say it's mamish the same, because a whole new koyach occurred at Matan Torah that we can begin this process of purifying the matter. But it didn't actually occur by Izazman, but to the fact that Yidden will be and have been, and the Rebbe said they've already finished working so much all the generations at this world, then they purified and prepared the world that it's able to go up and become a kli lekabel, damayla mamish bim koimi. That's the expression yizdachech. It becomes purified and made into a receiving keli. That's what's going to be taken from Miyad, the Gilui HaMashiach. So you say to yourself, well, all of our little Fashlof and the Kalims are all going to all of a sudden be Mizdachik and they're going to go up into the Mokim Hamayla. So the answer is yes. And if you've just been sitting around twiddling your thumbs and you haven't been doing anything, Mizdachik, Lamayla, so I'm not going to tell you the Tevet, because then you'll say, well, okay, I'll just wait for the Tevet. And he said, what do I need to do anything for? So I'm not going to be as good as all that as to say, what's the Tevet? The Indian is that you got to do something. That's Mizdachik side. You have to be Mizdachik. But the Rebbe's point is that so much has happened to the Yidden, and there's been so many things. But Meshach Kol Toiros, that the truth is that the world is much more mezulchach than what we really think it is, and that if only we were to address the world in the right way and approach it in the right way, we'd be tremendously surprised to see how really mezulchach it really is and how really ready it is. And this is the thing that when you go out on Mivtzoyim and you do other things that the Rebbe said you should do, and you do them in the name of the Rebbe and you do the way the Rebbe says to do them, then you see amazing results. You see people really go for this stuff and they buy it, and there's a tremendous hisoirus, and everybody gets tremendously positive and verkocht, which means that really the world is more mezuchach than what we think. The trouble is that a certain Rishoyim, what they're sitting on the opinion of the Jewish people, and they're bringing them absolutely shalal, they're bringing them like spoil into the hands of the Sitra Achra, and they're doing pink hoful goma from what the Rebbe said and everything he said. And therefore, that's the way things look. It looks as if nothing's mezuchach, and everything's going in the opposite direction. But if you just pull all of a sudden in the other direction, and you show the world and the people what the Melech HaMashiach says, and people say, oh, yes. And the world is very mezuchach. All of a sudden, you're amazed at how really dark and delicate and everything the world is. And you can even find it by going. If you go and talk with Nish-Yidden, who are at least using their heads, and they're not just sitting around in a pub and pumping away at beer all day, and maybe even they somewhere or another realize that something's going. But al Chaponi, if you talk to the so-called thinking goyim, then you're amazed to see how they're concerned, and they want to make a better world, and they would like to be part of it, and do your bit and all this sort of stuff. It's all over, and people are waking up. So the matter is going to go up all of a sudden. And boom, it's going to be in the Madrega of the Maila. As they bring the Alter Rebbe over there. And the Rebbe in Ayin Beis writes about it, a tremendous arichis in the second chelik of the Ayin Beis, in the Drushim of Pesach over there. A tremendous view how it says the most amazing things, how the world is just going to be ready, and it's going to be a kli to go up to the Maila. Okay, so those are the two ways. Either Dave should come over, but it appears that Dave said, I've already done my part. I already came down. That was way back at Har Sinai. Now I'm waiting for you guys to come up. However, so there's a even Gimel. There's a third way. K'moi Moshe Olo El Hoyalikim Shahoy Baham Mem Yoim Lechem Loy Ochol Afilo Lechem Damon V'shom Nishyachedi Moi Hadibur. And there the divine speech came down and united with him together. So what do we see here? That it was like a coming down. Vayered Hashem ala Sinai, we already said that happened. But what happened with Moshe Rabbeinu was, despite the fact that Moshe Rabbeinu was, like we mentioned the other night in the Shir Kloli, he was the Shleimus Min Hoyanushi. Even the way he was down here, Moshe Rabbeinu didn't sit around, eating cream cakes and and sweeting away all sorts of good things, smoking, choice tobacco. Moshe Rabbeinu was completely mudal mikol advarim ha'ila. And Moshe Rabbeinu was a guf zach v'tahor. Nonetheless, we see that when he wanted to go up onto the mountain, then he went up a lot of madregas, and he didn't eat ordinary bread. Lechem loy ochal, and afilu lechem damon. He didn't eat even the man the way it was, and it's well known. The man was a very elevated and spiritual type of food. Even that was too megusham for Moshe Rabbeinu, and therefore the Gemara says that he ate like the Malachim eat, how they eat, and he ate the man the way the Malachim have it. In other words, they have the man even on a higher madrega. And even that's a difference of opinion. There's a whole thing from the Rebbe in Chelik Talad in the Sichas, in Lakuti Sichas, where the Rebbe Melech HaMashiach over there, he talks about the union of different opinions in the Gemara. However, what it comes down to is like written here, the Sikkum of the whole thing is that Moshe Rabbeinu didn't eat any form of lechem, even the lechem and the man the way it was down here. Maybe according to certain opinions he ate the man the way it is by the Malachim prior to its final Yerida into this world. However, Moshe Rabbeinu B'chlal didn't eat and he didn't drink, like he says, lechem lo yachalti v'mayim lo yisho sisi. He said about that himself. So that's a sign that Moshe Rabbeinu's body was living in a completely different way than what it normally does, and yet it was still a body. In other words, that he'd gone up, halfway up towards Elikus, and Shom, in that middle point, Nishyachid imoy ha dibur. wait a minute, we just said that the Eibusha came down at Matan Torah, came all the way down. And so now you say, well, Moshe Rabbeinu went half of the way up. So does that mean that the Eibusha sort of altered things slightly and he came only half the way down? So we have to say that mitzad the Maila, there's really no alteration in these inyonim. Once the Eibusha comes down, and he comes down, but kol hashleimus shaloi, because mitzad the Eibusha there's not any previous requirements. He can just give whatever he gives. Mitzad etzem hayirida shaloi. However, he wants that there should be this aliyah from Mata, and at the time of Matan Torah, he wanted it in a way that it should be lefi the koyach of the nivra kama shehu yachol lahalois etzmai. And Moshe Rabbeinu, being, as we said the other night, he was the shleimus of the mino enushi, he was a perfection of the human species. And therefore, Moshe Rabbeinu elevated himself as much as it tried to say that any human could elevate himself. So then the Eibusha said, okay, in other words, that once he's done that, then my coming down altogether does really alter. But now that I've got a kli, I'll be able to relate to him differently than if I would have just come straight down Lamata. So therefore, that doesn't alter the fact, like he said earlier, that the Ered Hashem al Har Sinai, the Eibusha did come down, mamish, completely, as it were, onto Har Sinai. Ki be'etzem ha'inen ein b'zeh nafke, ein b'zeh nafke mina. V'atam l'zeh, why is it that Kilo, Moshe Rabbeinu, had to have this Indian from Aliyah, and then he was able to be Mishyachi, mamish, with the divine speech? Atam l'zeh lefi sha'asogis Moshe Bahar, that Moshe Rabbeinu, the way he was on the mountain, his grasp and his appreciation, it was tremendously elevated and high. Al-Kain, al-idei yerida levad anim shel m'mayla lamata, lo yehoye yochol liyos b'china zu. So the Rebbe said, since Moshe Rabbeinu came to such a tremendously high level that he was masig inyonim, but here lamata he couldn't possibly have been masig those inyonim, and therefore, had it been only purely mitzad the aliyah milmaila, the yerida of the Eibusha milmaila lamata, then he wouldn't have been able to reach that level. So I said, so what's the problem? The Eibusha comes all the way down, he can give Moshe Rabbeinu what he wants. So what is he in? So therefore in brackets, the Rebbe knows that you've got a question mark over your head, so he tells you what is the beer. It says, because the yerida so elyon lamata, hu b'bei soifanu. He said, when the Elyon comes down Lamata, that can be imagined in two possible ways. Oi, sha'am shoche I liyos b'pchinas gilui mamish el atachtoin, b'pchinas pnimios. He said, one possibility is that the Hamshocha can be Melmaila Lamata, Bo'ifan reveal mamish, gilui mamish to the Makabel, how he is a tachtoin, b'pchinas pnimios, meaning that he comes according to the kelim and the abilities of the tachtoin, how he is a tachtoin, and he comes to him mamish. He said, for that to happen, that can only be if the Eibusha gives down not himself mamish, but only a how do you call it, what's the expression, ha'ora bilvad, only a luminescence of himself, only an option, as they call it in English, ha'ora bilvad, not the essence, but a luminescence from the essence. And Mamela said that Rebbe, that's not what we're interested, because everybody knows that the Matan Torah was mamish amshochas ha'atzma. So he said that's not the way the Eibusha did it, because that would only be a ha'ora, and that's not what Moshe Rabbeinu was makabel. But if the atzmas is nimshach, but if the very essence of Hashem comes down, then that can't be begilui to a makabel b'chinas pnimios. It can't go into his pnimios, ki ein a makabel kli elzeh, because a makabel, the way he is a tachtoin, then he's not kli to atzmas. And therefore, b'chinas Zu el Moisha, Liyesh Gila B'chinas HaToiro, Shazu Amshochas HaAtzmas, as we all know, over B'chinas Pnimius, and it went into Moshe Rabbeinu's Pnimius, Lo Yehoya Efshe Liyesh Al Yidei Yeridas HaElyon Lamata. It couldn't be only mitzad the Yerida of the Elyon Lamata, meaning to Moshe Rabbeinu the way he was Lamata, meaning to the Tachton the way he is Lamata. Therefore, there had to be that Moshe Rabbeinu had to go up. I can't go all the way up, it's not yet Liyosis Love, so at least he went up to the middle point. But the Eibishter came down, Mitzidoi, in the same way that he would have come down, all the way Lamata, Mitzad the Atzmas, but the fact that Moshe Rabbeinu went up, or that made it possible for that Atzmas to be nimshach into a Kli. In other words, that the Shinui on the part of Moshe Rabbeinu, that he was oile from his matzav as a tachtei into being even higher or at least equal to the Malachi Yoshodes, then that made it possible for the Eibishter to come down in the second way, which was mentioned, the Hainu, the whole Amshochas Atzmas, and for it to be nimshach b'pnimius to Moshe Rabbeinu. V'gam alidei aliyah levad de Moshe lo yochol lalish kol kach. But if we said, well, maybe we take Moshe right up to the top, he said that couldn't be either, because at that point it wasn't yet the time for Liyosid. Remember, Moshe Rabbeinu could go all the way up to the top. If the Eibishter come down Lamata, then nobody would be a Kli to it. If Moshe Rabbeinu went up, that's not possible at this point. Ela, what did happen? Le'achisha olav nizdachik b'chol masha efsha. But after that he did have an aliyah Moshe Rabbeinu and he was purified, everything that was possible, Lefi b'chinas Moshe, according to the level of Moshe, v'nachnu more. That Moshe Rabbeinu later said about himself together with Aaron that we are more. We are the madrega of Ma. Ma indicates the union of beetle, Atzmi, absolute beetle of the very self. And they said, Vanachnu Ma, what are we? We are nothing. We have no existing state anymore. He reached, Moshe Rabbeinu reached the possibility of the aliyah that he could have at this point, which was that he went into the level of Nachnu More, into absolute beetle and beetle be'etzem mahusay. V'gam milmayla lamata nimshacha oyer b'chinas yerida, and he said that the oil was nimshach, from the Eibishter downwards in the form of a yerida, but it was nimshach the atzmius, as we'll see in a second. Azai yuchal lehischaber beispe habechinas. Then the two can join together. In other words, that the Atzmus had to come down, Lamata wouldn't have been able to be Mitzkabel, but now that Moshe Rabbeinu has reached more, and he's reached the Madrega that is possible for him to reach by going up halfway, then the Atzmus was able to come down. V'hainu, that's what the Rebbe said, to Oz me'yeho elyon b'pchinas ha'pnimius. In other words, then it's the pnimius of the Elyon Atzmus, and it's nimshach into the pnimius of the Tachtoin. In other words, Moshe Rabbeinu became as much as a Kli as was possible before the coming of Moshiach. V'gam alidei aliyah levad de Moshe. I'm sorry, where are we? Okay, so says the Rebbe, we see then that what happened, the Elyon came down Lamata, and as far as the Elyon's concerned, it's not really enough Gemina, therefore it came down B'chol Atzmas. But in order for that to be Nimshach, but there had to be an Aliyah at least halfway on the part of the Makabil, and that was Matan Torah, a very, very high Madrega, and that was Moshe Rabbeinu, what he was the first Makabil of the Torah. So now after that, says the Rebbe, a similar, what you might call formula, occurs by all Yidden. All Yidden, no matter who they are, have got the ability to join up with the Eibishter Kaviyochel Be'emtza, and we have to say that Moshe Rabbeinu trod the path and made it possible that everybody should be able to mitzad the neshama, they should be able to reach a similar type of madrega, albeit not the madrega of Moshe Rabbeinu. But Kamoy Kain, he says, who beklolis neshamas Yisrael. Yesh gam kain shamochim achimbo be'emten. Our neshamas go up and they have a zichuk to a certain point, and then the Eibusha comes down and he joins up. Yeah, he joins up with them, and then you get this yichud between the atzmas of the Eibusha and the neshamas. Where do we see a dogma of that? Now this is written right at the end of the term Pasha Nitzovim. That's the Pasha we read mamish before Rosh Hashanah. And we say at the beginning of the Pasha, Atem Nitzovim Hayom, you're all standing today in front of the Eibusha. And what's the purpose of your standing? That the Eibusha is going to pass you over in the bris. In other words, he's going to bring you into the bris. In other words, before Rosh Hashanah, every year there's like a very high new type of bris that occurs, that the neshama reaches a new iskashas in the Eibusha. And so that's the union of li'ovracha b'bris. It's well known why they use the expression li'ovracha, because in those days when they made a bris, they used to take an entity like a behemoth, for example, and they used to cut it into two halves and separate the two halves in a way that they were like two halves, but they're obviously two halves of the same animal. And then the two people making the bris would walk between the two of them, declaring what was their agreement, what was their bris. In other words, the point being to show that they're really just two halves of the same item. In other words, just like the two pieces of the behemoth are really just two halves of the same item, then through their covenant they're becoming like two halves of the same item. So that's the expression li'ovracha b'bris Hashem Elokecha. And so the Rebbe said, how does that work by every year? And he said later on, he says in the pasuk, not only li'ovracha b'bris Hashem Elokecha, but v'liyosh l'chol li'eloi kim, and to be for you like an Eibusha, li'yosh l'chol elokim. The pirush li'ovracha b'bris. So the Rebbe says, those two statements are like the milmata lamaila and the milmaila lamata of this kesher between the Eibusha and the neshamas. Li'ovracha b'bris means that the Eibusha gives you the power to go over from one level to the other. Yeah, v'hu, he said, the pirush li'ovracha b'bris, that he will pass you through the covenant, that you get the ability to go from one place to another, literally. Yeah, you elevate yourself and you go over. Ad makoim hamachshava ho'elyoino b'pchinas arich anpin shershu mokeh hane'etzanim. There is one on that the Midrash tells us that Yisrael olu b'machshava, that the neshamas, that they went up into a very high madrega even prior to their bringing into creation of the Eibusha's machshava. Machshava is a very high level by the Eibusha, by a mensch. Machshava is a very pneumatic level in the levushim of the Adam. So the Yidden are called olu b'machshava. And if we take that in the Seder of the Giluim, then that's what we had before. That's Arich Anpin, which is Shorsh Mokeh HaNetzalim. Like we said, it's the Shorsh Mokeh of the Sphira. So what happens is that a Yid elevates himself, and he goes up, particularly before Rosh Hashanah, he goes up and he passes over from one level to the other, until he reaches the union of Machshava Elyon. He goes back to his immediate Shoresh, which is the Machshava, and that's in the level of the low level of the Bamutze in Arich. V'liyosh l'chol elikim, that's Eibusha's business. Hainu she'erein sei poruchu hishpil es atzmei kaviyocho b'pchinas ati. Like we saw earlier, the Eibusha brought himself down. The Eibusha allowed himself to go down, kaviyocho, into the level of Atik. V'shom u'achibur, and there they meet together. Shemei b'chinas atzmas erein seif Atik. B'nishamas Yisrael, in the nishamas of the the Yidden who have elevated themselves and they've gone over from one level to the other, up into their Machshava Elyoina, which is anyway Arich, and they used to come down, and he's brought himself down in Yerida Maila Lamata, and he's Mishkasha with the Be'emta, which is in the Mamutza of Atik and Ari. So that's what we see, that there's a very special usage of that Mamutza to bind up the Neshamas also with the Eibishter. And so from that it follows that the Yidden have the same Mamutza, and they're linked to the Eibishter in the same way as the Keser with the Inif and the Ner Tzolim, and that's mashma even a little bit more, because the Neshamas go back mamish and are mishachid with that madrega, how it is in Keser mamish. The Ilo, the Ner Tzolim are only makabo mizeh. And that's why the Neshamas always remain higher than all other entities. And so therefore he says, his pillar to Kaviyah b'chinas Atik, v'shomu achiba, shemei b'chinas Atzmas ein seip and Neshamas yes. Well, akamishkos l'b'chuti Torah dibur amasra atem nitzovim. That's that parsha that we mentioned right at the beginning. And that's what the Rebbe brings us all in from the Overach Babris, because that's the second pasuk over there. And he explains over there what we were just masbir. Over Seif Habir, the Ki Ha'oretz Teitzit Simcha, but that's also in the Haftorah of that particular parasha. Ki Ha'oretz Teitzit Simcha. There's a minor from the Alter Rebbe over there on that pasuk, and at the end of the Bir on that Maimah, the Alter Rebbe says a very similar thing. When I get to Le'ovrcha Babris Hashem Eleh Ke'acha, there's the Le'ovrcha Babris, and then there's the Inyan of Li'esh L'cha, L'Lakim, the Aliyah Mitzad the Taktain, and the Yerida of the Eibishter, and they meet in the middle in Keser. That's what he's mavai over there in Lekutei Torah. He says the Rebbe Omnam, however, Zo Davke Kasher Yishpil es Atzmei Kaviyocho b'Bchinas Atik, v'hainu liyesh shalidei b'Bchinas Yeridas Erein Sei b'Bchinas Atik, im yoyze b'Bchinas Hatoches Hamahus, mikol mokim hariu nas b'Bchinas Mamutza, as yochol liyesh alidei zeh b'Bchinas Ischabres Erein Sei b'Neshamas Yisrael. So the Rebbe said, L'choira, what have we done? We haven't really made anything better, because we've said that what is Atik? We said Atik is Hatoches HaMahus. And Mahus V'atzmas. That means Mahus V'atzmas of the Eibishter. That's how we said before here, Tiku Anshit Chitzkiah. But that's the Inif and Hatoches HaMahus. So I mean, how can you say that anything, even Neshamas, can be bound up and joined up with Atzmas HaMahus? And that was the Rebbe, even though we're saying that is that the Eibishter brought down Yeridas main safe b'Bchinas Atik. That's a B'china from Hatoches HaMahus, which can't very well be. Mikol mokim hariu nas b'Bchinas Mamutza. Well, that's the whole kunz that we've been describing here the whole time. That once he enters Keser and he enters Atik in Keser, then there's already a slight change in the matter, because he's already become a Mamutza. The way he is. Yeah, M'lamaila Mamutza, then he's Mamish Atzmas Hamahus. So even though he's Taka here also, Atzmas Hamahus, Mikol Mokim, he becomes a Mamutza. And that's what we saw, was a whole mashal of the Maturgiman, that the Maturgiman doesn't get it exactly how it is by the Rav. He gets it, but he doesn't in a way. He gets not something different, but he's already able to be a Mamutza. So that's what we're saying, that the Maila of Keser is that the Hatoka of the Mahus, Tiku Anshich Chizah, they brought down Mamish in the Mahus, how it is, but nonetheless, it's become an in for a Mamutza. And therefore, Yochel Liyes, Ali Dezeh, B'chinas Ischabers, Te'erein Seip, and Neshamas Yes. That's right. Imam Lafise, we see on a different level, on a higher level, than the Eilamas, because on the Eilamas, everything just sort of goes down through the Mamutza, and it gets Sfiras, and everything just sort of keeps going, Hamshocha, one to the other. By the Neshamas, we see it's not like that. By the Neshamas, we see they have to be oiler. They've got to come upwards at least halfway, and then they form their kesher with the mamutza in Keser, and that's a special union. What the Eivshter declares that it's a bris, that it's called a covenant, and a covenant is from both sides. Both sides are active parts in the. So therefore, the difference is that over there by the Ner Cholim and eventually by the Eilamas, it's all just going down, Mumaila Lamata, and each union is being kabel from the other in the way that we saw in the Maturgamon with the whole Ariches. The difference is that in the Nishamas, well, they go up and they make this, they have this power to be oiler into a middle point, and Leosid, they're going to go up to a very, very high Madrega, Mamish into the Atmas. But at least they have the ability to go up into the level of Machshova, which is their Shoirish, and there the Eivshter joins up with them, and they form this bris. That's a whole amazing idea of a bris, of a covenant. We only find a bris with neshamas, with Yidden. You don't find a bris only with the world. The only place where we find a bris with the world was with Noach. There would be the kiyum of the olam. There wouldn't be any shinui. But all other bris and dafki with either Avraham Avinu, with Moshe Rabbeinu, with all the Yidden, that's the union of a bris. Meaning that through the elevation into the middle point, literally, and we have to say that power, Be'ika, was given through Moshe Rabbeinu at Mount at Har Sinai at Kabbalah Sater. Since Moshe Rabbeinu achieved that, and he went up, then it becomes the possibility of Yidden, all generations to come, that they can also do that. And that's the union of Chodesh Tishrei B'miyuchad, the union from Rosh Hashanah, and the Yosef Shemei Tshuva, and the union for Yom Kippurim. Well, that's that aliyah into that yichud where the Yidden themselves elevate. Therefore, all of El is Ani Ladoidi, the Nishom himself elevates himself into that point. Mashenka in the previous Yom in Tevim Amor, how Eivshter took the Yidden out of their shubad in Mitzrayim, etc. Lafise, it follows that Yidden also meet in the mamutza of Keser, but in a different way, like he said, Bo'ifan Acher, than it is by the Elamas. So that's that. So bentime we got from the Matzil to the Netzalim, or we got from the Matzil, or even higher than the Matzil, we got from some Atzma Saint Safe into the Neshamas. Oh, what's with the poor old worlds? We never got to the worlds yet. Particularly, we never got past the Netzalim, and everything's to be fine. What's going to be with the poor old created worlds? Bria Yetzirah Asiya. And particularly that whether we ask for it or not, we happen to be in Olam HaAsiyah. The Gemara brings that maybe it would be, if you to ask Adam honestly, he would maybe say that Noach Lo Yishalinu would be more comfortable for him had he not been created, etc., etc. That's it, and there we are. We're Lamata in this world. What's going to be with the Elamas? What's going to be with them? So we only got down as far as Atzilus, so we got even higher. We got up to the Neshama. So now comes along the Rebbe and he says, "K'moi kein hu b'chinas Atzilus b'klal." Let's go now into Atzilus. We got down through the Memutza into Atzilus. Harizeh Memutza bein oirein seif ha'ma'atzil el ha'nivroim ke'dua. Now he said, let's take Olam Atzilus. Yeah, that's this Olam after Keser. It begins with Chochmah, and we have all the Esesphiras, and we go down to Malchus, and then from Malchus we move over into Elamas Bria Yetzirah Asiyah. So he said, they also have a mamutza. Over there, mamutza is not Keser. Keser is a mamutza between the Ein Sof and the Netzalim and the Sphiras. Over those Sphiras, they now become on themselves a mamutza. They're a mamutza between Keser and the Oilamers. Yeah? In other words, that they now become a new Keser. And they become like a Keser of their own. The whole of Atzilus becomes a mamutza between Ein Sof and the created worlds. In other words, that the whole mamut of Keser b'tzadatzmoi was only, as we said, to reach the Netzolim. So that was the Rebbe. This is a whole new one now. Yeah, that we have to have Atzilus in order to be a mamut of Bein Ein Sof HaMatzil El HaNivroim. Now notice the change in the word. This time we're moving down into the, what you might call the real, the real battlefront. What's the meaning of the Nivroim? Yeah, Kiyadua. V'yesh b'zeh gam kein b'chinas Yeridus ha'atzmas kaviyochu li'yesh b'chinas mamutza. Just like in Keser itself, we found that the Eibishter came down in the form of his atzmas to be a mamutza. Yeah, the same way here he also does it. V'hainu mashu pnimiyas abba hu pnimiyas atik. Now we go back to where we were before. Pnimiyas abba hu pnimiyas atik. This time, that atik's made a big jump from pnimiyas akeser. Yes, it does. So, you have to think what sort of a yontif it might be today. I suppose you don't really need any day where good things happen. That's a yontif. So therefore, says the Rebbe that what is a mamutza here? He said, "Masha pnimius abahu pnimius atik." The pnimius atik atzmoi zeh masha nertach v'nivdel lagamrei. Aval al yidei shenivshu b'pnimius chochma. So we said that what happens now is that this amazing thing of Atik, Im kol a shleimus shel Atik, the way he is in Keser, in Atik, we saw that he was netach v'nivdal afil van Arich, that Arich is also nimshach men only b'derech Machia bilvad. He said he comes now all the way down to another, he joins up with another mamutza, and that is Abba of Atzilus. What Abba of Atzilus is Chochmah. And there he comes down and enters the Pnimis of Abba, and therefore they form a new Mamutza. What from there we're going to get down to the Ilamas. In other words, we've already got Chochmah Ilua, the high Chochmah of Atzilus, and that's going to connect up with Chochmah Tach Tuah. What Chochmah Tach is Malchus, and then through that you're going to get the Bria Yesh Mi'ayin, how do you call it, the Mamish Bria, the Inif and Nivroim, into Ilamas Bria Yetzirah V'yah, Bria Yetzirah V'ashiyah. We see a new Indian now. The whole Inif and Keser that's a special Inif for the Netzolim, and then it's a special Inif for the Neshamas Yisrael. Oba, the Mamish get down into what you might call the amount of the soup at the bottom, but that's what they call in Yiddish the rechte gedechte, right? To get all the way down into Malchus, and from that to come over into the Elamus Nivroim. For that you got to have another mamutza, and that's the union of Chochmah. The necessity for that. Why we could say that? Because Chochmah is this amazing, as we've seen. Chochmah on the one hand is the beginning of the spheres of Atzilus. It's the Elyon Shebekol Asfiras, and mitzad it's Pnimius, it's a Kli, and the beetle in Chochmah makes it a Keli to very, very high. In Yonah, Ria the Chochmah, not even higher. This is from Pnimius Abi, Pnimius Atik. But on the other hand, Chochmah is already the beginning of the Inyan of Matthias, of Gilui to Mekablim, and Chochmah is already preparing to give things down in a way that they will become reality to the Mekabel. Like we see in Amen, when he gets the thing into Chochmah, then it already comes into Bina, from Bina it'll go into his Midas, from Midas it'll come down into Machshava Dibba, and Afila into Maaseh. Well, that's what we hope, Al Chapanim. It'll go through all those Madregas and it'll reach the Yinim from Machshava Dibba or Maaseh. So therefore we see that Chochmah is a new idea, that Chochmah is a new mamutza. On the one hand, it's got a kesher with the highest possible inyanim. On the other hand, it's already the beginning of knowing how receiving entities who feel themselves, it knows how they react. If you're talking up there in kesher, then up there weiß man noch nicht how created entities react. And therefore you've got to reach a new type of mamutza. Well, that's eating for Chochmah, and that's eating from Pnimius. Abba, he Pnimius, Atik, and does go to Politika Inyan, and we'll see more about that in coming and future and developing episodes. But there is to be a developing episode.
Alright, I have a question. It's somewhat unrelated to the Gemara, but it has to do with something you said during the Gemara. You said, not you said, the Rebbe says that in the Ossi, that the mantra is going to become Gamaila, right?
Yes.
So doesn't that reverse the whole thing of Gir B'Tachtanim? So Tachtanim is going to become Gir?
No, it doesn't. Because it doesn't mean that the Tachtim will just become a spiritual world. Well, the Tachtim will remain a Tachtim, but it'll be a Kli to them. That's what we mean, it'll go up. Because when you're a Kli to something, you go up to its Matrei. Particularly if you're a Kli Pnim. So it doesn't mean that the world's just going to stop being a world. It's going to travel up in it's going to remain what it is, but it's going to be a Kli to Atzmus Ein Sof Mash. Follow? That's an
You said that Neshama's only go halfway. What level is halfway? Because in Tanya it says that if you do obviously short, you can go.
Yeah. No, but that's only up till now. But when Mashiach will come, then the Neshamas. If now the Neshamas go halfway, but when Mashiach will come, they'll be right up the top.
What is halfway?
That's what we're saying. Halfway is where the zichur of the Makabel comes as much as possible, like Moshe. He became Mezucha Kufa, still had a group, but it became. So I mean, it's written in Kabbalah that he put his kuf off in Olam HaYetzirah, and he went off some people even in Bria, and then he went up close to the Matrei of HaTzirah.
So halfway is actually.
Yeah, so that's only halfway.
I have a technical question.
That's only halfway.
I have a technical question.
When are we going to eat supper?
No. There's three ways, right? There's the way where it's Rosh Lava, which can be from the Mata Lamaila. And the second way is from the Mata Lamata. And the third way is in between. It seems not shaykh that the one that's from the Mata Lamata were to be shaykh at all, because
No. That's what we pointed out. The Lamaila Lamata doesn't change. So the emes kavanah, the Lamaila Lamata is Shvidam Shochas Atzmus. That's what the Rebbe said in the break. Otherwise, it's only a Ha'ora, and we're not doing Ha'oras. It's only so Tzadam Shochas Atzmus is never any real change. So the Amshochim Lamaila Lamata is the same. It's just Mitzad Matan to just purely, as far as the world was concerned, there was no Makabel. So it just came down and went back. But Moshe Rabbeinu became a Makabel. That's in Torah.